I'm going to run down the news for you real quick, and what I'm going to do is link to it below so you can get more on the story like that. This is also my effort to encourage people to do a little bit more reading and to save time on these videos. First big news, of course, I know 9/11 is tomorrow in Japan. It'll be in 2 days in the US from the time differences, so I'm going to get into that last, but something that kind of snuck under the radar here, a big story. The U.S. Senate swindled another $500 billion. Just add that to the debt. They did this with a sneaky little attachment to the raise the debt ceiling bill that they passed a while back when they're ranting on about the Super Congress and all the other crud. Also, tonight in Japan, there was a 9/11 special. So I thought, okay, I'll watch it. I filmed it, and I'm going to put the film here on my other name because it's all in Japanese and I don't have time to go through and tell you what it's saying, although I was kind of talking as it was playing, so you can catch that much. So you can watch that there, and I'll update that later. The main thing is they had a Japanese reporter go and show you Ground Zero today and memorials to the 2 buildings that fell down, and they went into the Pentagon strike, and they followed up with a story about Bin Laden, blah blah blah. Ended up with the Osama Gate at the end. Not one word mentioned about Building 7. Not a word. Skyscraper falls down. Nothing. Nothing to report about it. And the same reporter, I forget the guy's name, but this Japanese guy, he's terrible. A while back he gave this report about the Tea Parties, and he said it was created and led by Sarah Palin. And he made them look like absolute idiots. And they were all like, oh, not a hold on. And they had no clue, you know. And I've had people ask me, do you know the Tea Party? And I have to explain to them, okay, there are 2 Tea Parties, the Neocons, who just recently went to Tel Aviv, and the original Tea Party, which started while Bush was president and is an anti-war party, Tea Party being from the Boston Tea Party, not the acronym Taxed Enough Already. That had nothing to do with it. There are also 2 9/11 truth movements. There's the 9/11 truth movement, Sibel, Corbett, myself, Rivero, the people grounded in facts, and then there's the 9/11 cuckoo movement with Fetzer and Woods and the no planes and magic crap, aliens, and, you know, disintegrating buildings and holograms and missiles and all that crap, which is more than any other factor what has created such a stigma about 9/11 truth, and you can't tell if they're paid shills or if they really are just that dumb. Other news in Japan, you probably don't know this guy, but Hachida Yoshida was forced to resign from his post in the government because of a comment he made. And the comment he made was essentially that Fukushima is a dead city, which it is. Now, the Japanese government and NHK and TEPCO, and we're saying this Tokyo Electric Power Company, have been uniform in saying a while back on March 11th, that in 9 months they would tell people whether or not they could return. And the zoned off area continued to grow. They kept zoning off more and more area and pushing people out because of radiation. But from day one we knew you're not going to be able to go back. There's meltdowns. There's nuclear radiation all over the place. It doesn't just go away in 9 months. You can't clean it up once it's gotten into the ground and into the water. So, for speaking the truth, he's been forced to resign. So, good luck to Yoshio. They said it was insensitive what he said, but look, someone has to start telling the truth on that. The general public, like a lot of them knew, man, we can't return, they knew that. But there are some people, because of hope, you know, because of wanting to be able to return and needing that, who believe the government's bull on that and thought, oh, maybe in 9 months they're going to tell us we can go home again. Not the case. I just thought it was BS that he had to resign. He wasn't being insensitive. He was trying to tell the truth. Now, we had the presidential debate between Ron Paul and more of the same. And I thought Ron Paul won the debate. The majority of Americans who voted on online polls thought so as well. However, in MSNBC's own poll, they posted the results, but you look at it, I don't know how 22 gets the bar just as long as 42, when it's nearly half that, but they have it construed in such a way where it looks like Mitt Romney and Ron Paul got the same amount of votes, when in reality is Paul got nearly twice as many. Now, Scary Perry, Slick Rick, the holy roller, the one that vaccinates 12-year-old girls for sexual diseases and thinks he's a prophet, has really outdone himself. This is far worse than Bruce Fine. His foreign advisor, his Captain Neocon Douglas Feith, he can't get any lower or dumber. I mean, Douglas Feith is the dumbest among a bunch of dummies. And you can see that outlined in War by Deception. I did a number of grilling that big muppet. That's what he's like. He's just like a burp, burp, burp. Sits up there and lies about things you have them on tape saying. He's a moron. He lied about weapons of mass destruction. He headed the Office of Special Plans. His underlings were caught spying for AIPAC. I don't know why he's not in jail. But now he's a foreign advisor for Rick Perry, which is a perfect coupling, actually. And some sad news. I'm going to have to smack around a couple websites. Veterans Today has jumped the shark. I mean, they've really gone downhill. Gordon Duff had a hit piece on Ron Paul recently, which I'm going to trash. But first, prior to that, they've been having Uncle Fester, I'll call him, on there with his no planes theory of 9/11. I don't know how you could discredit yourself faster than claiming that even in New York City there weren't any airplanes being used. That's beyond retarded. That's not just an ad hominem attack. I just don't know what to say to that. I mean, say there weren't any planes used in New York. Sorry, that's retarded. It's on film. Not only by the mass media, but anybody who had a camcorder in New York has footage of the second plane, at least, hitting the building. The people on the plane are dead. It's not like all their family members are just faking that. It's the same as with the Pentagon, except this one's on tape too, and they're still denying it. It's amazing. So not only is he promoting that trash from the kook movement, but then he comes out with Ron Paul, and this is what he said. He said, and I quote, first he titles it, "Time to throw him under the bus. We've been played by him enough." And he says, "For years we've been told how Ron Paul supported a new investigation on 9/11. He's quoted continually on this. In reality, his is a denialist of American Holocaust." I'm not sure if that was actual English or not. The second half of that run-on sentence doesn't even make sense, but Ron Paul does support an independent investigation into 9/11 because of the incompetence, and that's a safe position to have. It's what a lot of other people have, because they know should an independent investigation begin, for whatever reasons, it's going to uncover a lot more than incompetence. It's going to uncover complacency. Gordon Duff goes on to call Ron Paul an idiot and an absolute moron even by Bush standards, and then he picks on Texas for a little bit and accusing him for shilling for Gaddafi and the Mossad. How? No evidence presented. Ron Paul would cut all aid to Israel. Ron Paul did not want to invade Libya. That doesn't mean he's pro-Gaddafi. It just means he doesn't want to waste billions of dollars. And Paul had a good point he pointed out against one of O'Reilly's shills. He said, look, Libya had a plan for a nuclear weapon. They gave it up. They got rid of their nuclear ambitions. And what happened? They got invaded by NATO. So what's that say to everyone else in the world? If you do have a nuclear program and you are looking for a bomb, you better go through with it. That's your only protection against imperialism. Duff goes on to talk about the Tea Party going to Tel Aviv, which is something I just told you. What the idiot doesn't understand is that Tea Party, when they say Ron Paul's the godfather of the Tea Party that started for Ron Paul was an anti-war movement. We have footage of Paul with the original Tea Party throwing crates off a boat into the water, just like the Boston Tea Party. And the crate that Paul chose was the Iraq War. That's what he was going to get rid of first. Other crates were on there, the Fed and other things. It was not this anti-Obama but give Bush a pass crap that we have now that is perfectly okay with military interventionism abroad, which so is Duff on Libya actually. They're perfectly okay with that. That's not the Tea Party. We've got Neocons and Tea Classic, and I've changed the name of Tea Classic to the Lemonade Stand Party. to make it very clear. And I think all you anti-war Tea Partiers who don't even want to associate with that title anymore should start promoting the Lemonade Party. That's for the little girls getting raided for setting up a lemonade stand. You know, this is the basics of free market. They go out and sell lemonades. I did it when I was a kid. I sold lemonade at baseball games and stuff. Or I lived at the beach, so it was easy to do. It was always hot weather. You know, selling something, a little lemonade stand. I sold sand dollars before, you know. So the Lemonade Party, I would like to become the new name for the Tea Party Classic. And the Neocons can have the Tea Party title. And lastly, I debated this a long time whether I would do this because I didn't want to give namesake to this certain organization. So I'm going to be real clear, I don't support this organization at all, but somebody has been contacting me and saying, hey, you know, in a video a while back you said something about a website called Israel did 9/11 all the proof in the world, and he's like, I made this website and you said that it had a little bit of Jew bashing bullshit on it, so what do you mean by that? So I check out this guy's YouTube page to see if, you know, if he was associated with that site or not, because I can't confirm, you know, anybody could just say that, but it seems sincere. And on his page he has 3 videos, one of which was the speech by William Pierce, a white separatist of the National Alliance. Another was the video Missing Links. If you don't know, Missing Links, it does, you know, it says Jew every other word, and I try to explain why that is wrong, but I think it just went in one ear and out the other. But all Missing Links did, and I didn't say anything about it because a friend of mine made it. Mike is a friend of mine. But what they did is they copied a paper from William Pierce, a white separatist from the National Alliance. He's now deceased. It was called Who Rules America? And the entire section of that film is discussing the media and saying this Jew owns this and this Jew owns that. It's from Who Rules America. It's so bad and so plagiarist that they even had mistakes in it that were because the paper that Pierce wrote had been dated. Like they said Michael Eisner was running Disney when he no longer was. But when Pierce wrote the paper, it was true. But they didn't bother to 2 seconds to research to see who was running Disney at the time rather than who used to run it. And they just verbatim read this paper out called Who Rules America. It's totally plagiarized. Other sections about the neocons and the DoD were ripped right out of my All Roads paper and conversations and info I was giving them because I was a friend of Mike. And then they had a paper about the Zim shipping company, which another person wrote, and they straight up just read it on the film. So they read 3 papers by other people and had some B-roll footage in the background and said Jew this and that every sentence. You know, the film is fine because it was in a way exposing the Israeli role in 9/11, yet it really turned everyone off because it was like the Jews and Jews and Jews, you know. And let me explain this. Yes, most of the neocons are Jewish. However, obviously the reason you're putting the cart before the horse they have state sponsorship. Israel pushes Zionists into positions of power in the government and media for their own interests. They have a lobby that's an unregistered foreign agent that gets to openly bribe for these things. However, just imagine if I'm talking about neocons and I feel the need every time I talk about Cheney or Rumsfeld or Bush, you know, the actual president and vice president, and said the white who did this and the white who did that. It's nothing to do with whites or the man even. It has nothing to do with men in general. I don't see the need of having to say Jew, Jew, Jew. That's terrible. You know, it's Zionism. It's an ideology. Look at all the Jews who had nothing to do with it at all. And I know they were like, well, the 2% minority. That's because of what, like I said, Israel, they have state sponsorship to push people in positions of power. The Turks do the same thing. They're not even a 0.5% of the U.S. and they're getting billions of dollars in aid and all that too. Doesn't matter. We helped them ethnically cleanse the Kurds. That was in '97, so, you know, a little bit before social networking sites got off the ground, so it's not as open as the Palestinian issue, but plenty of people died. They went into northern Iraq and they're currently being bombed there now by the Turks again. It's not on press. Never gonna be. Anyway, I'm sorry to Missing Links fans, and I didn't want to mention the National Alliance. It's not a white supremacist site, it's a white separatist site. They're more of a cultural supremacist or something, but it's a racist site. That's it. And unfortunately, some of the people that made it went really downhill, and I've dissociated myself with them because they started posting videos of Hitler and bullshit like that. And I've noticed a lot of white separatists or supremacists or whatever have been either trying to attach themselves to me or trying to ridicule me. And I see, a lot of these racist groups, Stormfront in particular, they have a tight relationship with the ADL. They play fight, but time after time again, a lot of these so-called neo-Nazis and stuff end up not actually being neo-Nazis. They're Zionists that promote neo-Nazism because that helps them, actually. It gives them an enemy. It seems like it gives them it legitimizes the reason for their existence and to collect money from people, saying we're fighting the new anti-Semitism. And then mixed in the group you have some general useful idiots that think every area of the world needs to be segregated by race. I've had people comment after comment saying, Rye supports multiculturalism, nah nah nah. That's because I don't see culture and race as the same thing. I'm perfectly fine with people of all races living in the same country. If you think that culture is genetic, you're a fucking retard. It's not genetic. I have a twin brother, exact same DNA. We are very, very different. Culture is what you teach the youth. And you can raise a baby from whatever to become whatever. But depending on where you live, you teach them the language they're going to speak, you teach them what they're going to believe in, what their values are. They really don't have much of a choice until they're much, much older. And it's still very hard to break away from what you're raised with. I've had people accusing me of not liking white people because I won't bash on Jewish people. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. I see people as individuals. I don't collectively judge races. I think it's so stupid. Obviously, cultures are different in different places around the world, but I wouldn't say whites in Russia and whites in the UK and whites in Canada are the same any more than Koreans in North Korea and Koreans in South Korea end up the same. I mean, they have vastly different political ideologies and things because ideology and culture have nothing to do with race and ethnicity. The only times it does is when there's a religion or something that proclaims that race and ethnicity and culture are all one thing. But of course I would say that's wrong. They can say that all they want. It's still going to be wrong. I can't believe it's 2011 and I'm having to explain why racism is stupid. Unbelievable. Now, as for 9/11, I mentioned this Japanese 9/11 documentary, this little special they did. Now, although they didn't mention Building 7 or anything like that, they did show some new angles and stuff from the Japanese press. Maybe you haven't seen it. If you're a 9/11 researcher, you've probably seen them all, but maybe not. But one thing that was interesting is they didn't mute them or put music over it like a lot of people do. And on the collapse of the second tower, you can clearly hear this pop, pop, pop. And then it starts going down. So I did catch that on film. So if you go see it, you'll see that in the video. Or you'll hear that in the video. So that was interesting. So you can hear the explosions going off. And clearly you see the squibs going and how far the building blew apart. I mean, beams being shot blocks away and embedded in other buildings. That's not thermite quietly cutting through, which is a terrible timing mechanism. They were blown apart. But hell, you catch people in a van packed with explosives and you still gotta scratch your head and say, yeah, maybe it was thermite. Maybe it was the people caught with bombs. Why would you ignore that? I mean, it's fine. If you want to do science about thermite and stuff, and the two most common metals in the building, aluminum and rust, fine. You'll find out on a nano level in dust, which it better be there. I mean, if you have aluminum melting in a building full of iron, you better find it at least on the tiniest microscopic level, but whatever. I don't see why you would pigeonhole yourself into a nitpicking debate about stuff like that when individuals were caught with explosives on 9/11 and worked for an intelligence agency of a foreign country that benefited from 9/11, lied about the anthrax and the war and everything that followed it. I just don't understand that. Why would you make that your focus and ignore something else? I'm not dissing the thermite thing, I'm just saying that's such a stupid thing to make the focus. It's like having Charlie Sheen and Stephen Jones as the faces of your movement like AJ does. Sheen went a little, woo, you know, and not the best person to pick. Got a history of drugs and hookers, and you know, you may like the guy, fine, winning, duh, it's funny and all, but not the most mature person, you know, not the most believable person. And then Stephen Jones, this is the quack that went into all the cold fusion BS a while back. He was the scientist that promoted that and got some other dorks to go along with him. I mean, he's full of pop science. And then, of course, he's a Mormon. He found the bones of Jesus was another thing he claimed in the past. Dug that skeleton up. Found the bones of Jesus in the Americas, by the way. Come on, man. This guy just is an attention whore. Oh, I found the bones of Jesus. Oh, cold fusion works, I promise. Here's a paper. It doesn't work. And then, of course, you know, I found nanothermite in 2009 from chips I got. Thermite may have been used or not, but I'm not trusting Stephen Jones for it. And it's always linked back to him. Professor Jones did this. He is truly Jonestown. You can't let people pick the leadership of 9/11 Truth and make, when they're picking Jones and Sheen and people who are very easy to knock down. Jones completely discredited himself with the cold fusion stuff and the religious crap. And Charlie Sheen is very discredited as well. Now, he's still right. I mean, Sheen is right in his opinion that the government is involved in 9/11, but he is not the best voice for that. That's what I'm saying. Have some tact. Do some real research. I don't know why we promote this film. We have, if you want to celebritize it, we have much better icons to use than those two. On the science, or even if you want just a famous person, there are better people to pick than Sheen as well. So there's been a movement, I think, and you know where it's coming from. I'm not going to mention the fat guy in Texas's name, but there's been a movement to push the most retarded heads possible to the front line to be the face of 9/11 Truth, because they're very easy to debunk. That guy also had Fetzer on in his show, and he went all the way up until he was speaking on CNN. Why? Because he's an idiot that says there weren't any planes on 9/11. The DBS crowd got on CNN as well, pushing the Jew, crypto Jew crap. Why? Because they're racist retards, and it's very easy to debunk. Anytime there's a hit piece on 9/11, they talk about the missile hitting the Pentagon, which was from Loose Change, which was also promoted by the fat guy in Texas. You know, that is the gatekeeper and bullshitter master, and it's a very clever way of keeping the lid on 9/11. Not going to talk about the Israeli role, not going to connect it to Iraq, not going to really connect it to PNAC other than the one sentence they like to quote all the time, not going to go into anthrax, not going to look at the whole picture at all. That's a problem with the movement. But if you do sit there and explain it all, it just right over most people's heads. You just want to talk about giant owls and sloganeer about Rothschilds and NWO and stuff like that. It's sad.